Welcome back to the Brothers Mahoney. This is Michael.
And I am James.
And today we are discussing episode 4 of the War Between the Land and the Sea, being The Witch of the Waterfall, which is somewhat of a misleading name, but hey, we'll talk about it. This was written by, as far as I can tell, Pete McTighe. I think some sources state it was written by both McTighe and Russell T Davies. I'm actually not sure which is which, so right now I'm just saying Pete McTighe. Come at me, bruh. It aired much like the last episode on December 14th, 2025 in the UK, and like the rest of the series, it's going to air sometime early 2026 in the US. And immediately following the events of the previous episode, Barclay becomes the only human survivor of a bomb brought to the Deep Sea Summit by another of the delegates. Thanks to Salt, who is able to save him. A video is then released to the world which has Salt taking responsibility for the bomb, but Barclay, who knows her innocence, stages a daring rescue, and the both of them go on the run from both of their respective peoples. Salt from Aquakind and Barclay from a unit and the whole of the UK government who thinks he's a traitor. And yeah, I guess before touching on any episode specific stuff, let's just quickly go through the cast. We have Barclay, played by Russell Tovey. Though neither one appears too much, we have both Barbara and Corby here, played by Anne Akinjarian and Kat Gannon. Salt, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw. We sort of have Keith Spears here for like 2 seconds before he gets taken out, played by Patrick Bellardi. We have Prime Minister Harry Shah, played by Vincent Franklin. And you know the usual suspects. General Dominique Dosselaire, played by Barbara Probst, General Asko Gansborg, played by Stuart Alexander, and again some more usual suspects. We have Kate Lethbridge Stewart, of course General Radgrave, Ruth Madley playing Shirley Bingham, and I would say we had Alexander Deviant playing Christopher Abraham, but he barely appears in the episode because he gets hashtag destroyed. And hey, we also had this guy pop up in the same vein as Salt. And now I guess we don't know the position. We don't even exactly know what Salt's position is. But we have a guy named Tide who pops up, played by Samuel Otley, who is, interestingly enough, the guy who played Zim Shah from The Woman Who Fell to Earth and Battle of Ranskar of Corliss. And yeah, so to be honest, I had no idea it's the same person, so James mentioned it. I thought he did fine as Tide for like the 3 seconds he appeared. But boy, I try not to think about his other seasons. But yeah, let's just jump into this episode. We should say that we watched this like what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago?
Yeah, right now we are recording on the 17th and the episode came out on the 14th. And we, I suppose, watched it on the 15th. So like that 2 days ago.
Yeah, so that's partially because we had just watched episode 3 being The Deep, which both of us I think quite enjoyed. And this one, it had it didn't feel the same. It felt to me very tonally different, especially compared to The Deep, which is sort of a slow, introspective episode. Then we come to this one, and it just didn't have the same vibe. And I guess just jumping into it, at the end of the previous episode, of course, there was the guy, what was his name? The guy who tried to assassinate Salt with the bomb thingy. The explosion goes off. It looks like it takes out a lot of the Aqua kind and other humans who were down there, including General Austin Pierce, who first appeared all the way back in, what was it, Children of Earth. So he died, and the other 5 humans all died, along with what I would imagine was some Aqua kind. I'm not sure if we get an exact body count. But like we saw in the plot, Salt is able to save Barclay, but instead of creating like a barometric chamber as though rushing to the surface, it's actually, I think, some of a fun scene. It's sort of chaotic because it's very quick paced. We see the explosion go off, and we just see, I think, flashes of this Barclay barely surviving. I mean, he's underwater. There's the structure that kept the water out is like flooding in. So yeah, that's a nice suicide mission right there from that one guy's hand. So Salt is a save Barclay. At the same time, we see a video pop up that has Salt pretty much taking responsibility for the explosion, saying, "Oh, hey, no delegates or ambassadors are going to come into my domain, and we are at war and such." And to me, it seems like such an obvious. Now, to be fair, I guess we already knew there was some type of conspiracy theory previous, but to me, it just seems like such an obvious deep fake situation. And I'm pretty sure Unit immediately suspected it was a deepfake situation. Unfortunately, even though they might suspect that, they have their own problems because, of course, at the end of the last episode, we had the attempted assassination of Kate and the actual death of Abraham. So they have their own issues. And even though Salt saves Barclay and she brings him to a ship, Salt is actually imprisoned, and the thing is called a quote-unquote prisoner of war. So it's quality right there. Barclay is not happy. He's like saying, hey, she saved me. She should be imprisoned, and he's not really getting anywhere.
Yeah, it's not like Kate Lethbridge too doesn't sympathize, but she is going through a lot of emotional turmoil right now, and she's trying to do what she can to lead Unit, but I don't know. I think she's very close to the limit of being able to deal with what she's going through and actually being able to effectively lead Unit.
Yeah, I mean, in the last episode, she was barely getting any sleep. Then, of course, with the assassination attempt and the death of Abraham, she is not at her best right now. We do see a very brief moment early on when Shirley sort of takes command of a unit. Apparently, I didn't know this. Apparently, she's like second in command after Kate. And she has some pretty strong scenes where she's directing troops to go get the assassin. And I have to say, I feel like some of this is somewhat rushed because it turns out the assassin is part of, and I can't remember the name of the institute, but some type of organization which is the same in which the ambassador with Obama is connected with, and both of which were sort of funded by Keith Spears. So we suspected that maybe the general and, well, I guess both generals, the Gainsbourg and the French woman, had something to do with the assassination attempt on Saud. But it seems like it was actually another organization that we didn't even hear about until this episode, founded by Keith, and it just seems sort of, I just feel like it sort of, in a way, came out of nowhere. And not only that, when they're talking to the Prime Minister, both the French general and this Gainsbourg guy, they're both talking to the Prime Minister about the situation. Minister's, of course, worried that it might be brought back and connected with him. They say, hey, we can take care of this quietly. And they literally send an assassin on a motorcycle who knocks on Keith Spears' door, shoots him, and boom, that's it. And it just seems so rushed in a way.
Well, not only was it rushed, it also was seemingly more complicated than it should have been. Because it seemed like from episode, I suppose it would have been episode 2, it looked like Keith Spears was well, not openly, but was in a conspiracy with both the American general and the French general. And we saw them meeting at Keith Spears' apartment. And so we thought, okay, they were just working together. We saw them giving the hard soul in last episode to the Prime Minister, and Kate also happened to see that, at least part of it, in terms of taking a more warlike approach instead of diplomacy and dealing with Aqua kind. And yet, in this episode, as Michael said, out of nowhere, this institute is mentioned, and I feel like that's not how you do mysteries. I would think don't give the amazing, interesting answer to a mystery and introduce it in the very same place. I think you'd want to have mentioned it beforehand, but I get that maybe wasn't the main point of this. It seriously kind of strange to me. And the Prime Minister mentions that Keith was an idiot. And apparently Keith founded this institute, which, if I'm not mistaken, the delegate who had the bomb, whose name was Theodore something. I think he was the head of the institute or somebody high up in the institute, and he had cancer. It's funny mentioned that. I was going to say the same thing in episode 3, that the only reason he might have taken a position like this because he was terminally ill in another way. But I didn't get you say it, and it just so proves me right, even though I didn't get you mention it. So you'll have to take me for my word for that. But I was thinking that he was an older guy, so I don't think it's that amazing of a shots or gas. But the Prime Minister says that Keith has always been an idiot, and yet we never saw him be an idiot in the main scenes we saw him in previously. So that seems like it's coming out of nowhere because of the way that the two generals, Dominique and Asko, were looking at each other while explaining the whole connection with the Institute and with Keith Spears' donation and whatnot. I guess Keith was just a patsy they were using. But then that gets into the question. We said Keith himself, talking to the Prime Minister last episode, hey, have you ever heard of severance? Which obviously he was in on, but I guess that means the other people weren't in on, but maybe they were. I feel like, I mean, I get that it's episode 4 of a 5-episode miniseries, and Kate did give the directive when she heard about the murder of Keith Spears for Unit to look into it, and maybe you'll get some solid answers in episode 5. But I feel like episode 5 maybe has higher concerns.
Yeah, I feel like that shouldn't be the
that.
focus.
Well, I know it's not going to be the focus, but I mean, last episode 5 is an hour and a half, which it's not going to be, I wouldn't think.
It's not out of the question, to be fair. If they've released 2 episodes in a row, maybe they'll like make this last episode a bit longer just because it's only one. I mean, I feel like we can sort of hope, but I guess we'll find out. We did see toward the end of this episode the unit decided to look into the murder of Keith Spears, which is something that they generally would investigate. But Kate said the name, it's like, oh hey, maybe we should look into that. So it may come up in a deeper capacity, but right now I'm leaning to probably not. The biggest thing I wonder about is anything going to be going on with the Prime Minister like in the last episode? Is he going to be like booted out or something? I just don't know. And it's just not clear to me if they're going to be doing anything, and if they were going to be doing anything, what exactly they would be doing.
Yeah, I don't really know either. They're going to do something with it because they did set up Kate saying, hey, look into it. So it's going to have some type of conclusion. Perhaps she's going to figure out that the two Januars were working with Keith slash using him as a patsy. Because with Keith being blamed in the Prime Minister's eyes for the bombing of the diplomatic meeting, then the Prime Minister, yeah, he's worried because Keith was a big donor to him, but it leaves the Januars off scot-free, since it wasn't exactly open that they were conspiring with Keith Spears when in fact they were, which is why I've been calling him a patsy. So they're off scot-free, at least for now, but if Unit finds out some information, maybe they'll be implicated in it. I don't know, I feel like it's more messy than it needs to be. But I guess that's how conspiracies go.
And especially for a series that only has a single episode left. So, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. But while that's going on, and like we said, Kate survived the assassination attempt. Abraham did not. So she's trying to deal with her emotions over the death of Abraham, which, big shock, was not exactly a secret. Seems like plenty of people in Unit knew about it. Surely said that, she was happy for them. So it's a nice feeling, I'm sure. And then we come to what I would call one of the better scenes in the episode. It's once Barclay gets back to, I guess, the mainland. Because, like we said, Salt saved him when they were on the ship going back to the mainland. Salt is a prisoner. She's supposed to be transported to Unit. Now, James made a fair point that, well, Unit Tower, could they just transport her via, like, helicopter to the tower itself? But they chose not to, which seems odd to me.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, we haven't seen Unit Tower once this entire series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they have the reasons. But so they're right near the water. She's on a track in like one of those secure box type things. We saw a similar one, I think, back in Lucky Day, holding the Shriek. Salt's trapped in it despite having saved Barclay. Barclay has seen this deep fake and he's like, hey, are you guys insane? She's not the problem here. And he actually does something I'm not surprised by, but I'm so surprised by how it played out. He sort of talks to an old buddy of his because remember, way back in the day, he came from, I forget what the department's called, but just organizing transportation and the like. So he knew the guy who was driving or supposed to be delivering Salt to Unit. So he's like, oh, hey, I'll take it from here. He gets in the truck and, yeah, there's like a scene like, hey, don't drive forward. Parker's like, what are you going to do? Shoot me in front of all these news reporters? Which, to be fair, they probably could do, but I guess it's neither here nor there. But what he does instead, and I'm not surprised by this, he backed the truck up, and it was hard enough in which the case fell off the back of the truck and it burst open. Now, rather than that it should have burst open that quickly, who's to say? Point being, Salt is free. This is what surprised me. I expected Barclay to sort of hand himself in, saying, "Hey, I freed Salt out. Take my responsibility. I did this." What he does instead is he jumps into the water, and Salt swims, and he swims with Salt, and they both literally go on the run. That is something I, at the time, did not see coming, which I sort of enjoy. I mean, it seems overly grandiose, but I sort of liked seeing it.
Well, to be fair, in his position, the guy he is talking to, the driver who was supposed to take Salt to the unit headquarters, I don't know if it was jokingly or what, maybe he should have phrased his words a little better. He was talking about how unit was going to dissect Salt and whatnot, and Barclay was not into that idea since more than most people, he knows that she's innocent. In fact, he might be the only one who knows 100% that she's innocent. Unit at this point did not find out there was a deepfake. They do at the very end of the episode. But I have a feeling that something like that, the way that media perception works, is it going to matter? I mean, how many times, and I'm not going to go into the history, but how many times have wars touted over something, and then it turns out a year down the line, 2 years, 5 years, oh wait, that never happened in the first place. The war was
Yeah,
touted over nothing.
yeah, but since a lie is repeated so often, people still might believe that. I think best example, at least modern day, might be the weapons of mass destruction. I have to imagine that there are plenty of Americans who still think they had weapons of mass destruction and that the war is justified. So,
Well, I guess we don't need to get into like current day politics, but look at Venezuela with these drag boats.
that's actually a really good. Actually another really good example, and unfortunately topical. So yeah, this is not uncommon, and you can see the media. They're not doing particularly a good job in this episode. They're just showing this deep fake and saying, "Oh, Barclay looks like he might be a traitor." I'm like, really? That's fucking news, bro. Like that's how you're covering this. So that's some quality research right there. So the main point of the episode is that Barclay and Salt are literally on the run. We find out that that is not good. I mean, it's not great for Barclay, but it's apparently really not good for Salt. And we find out this from a character named Tide, where he gives a Trollian name, like his name is written in the sands and the stones of the ocean and the river or something, but we can just call him Tide. He has a meeting, an emergency meeting with Kate, who takes up the role of ambassador since, I mean, they don't have any great options right now. I think they did mention the guy from the first episode, but he was like 14 minutes out and Kate just wanted to get this over with. So she has a meeting with Tide, and Tide was under the impression that Unit had Salt and he wanted Salt back for punishment because apparently saving a human goes against the code of Aquakind. Is that what you got from that?
I think it was more that she saved a human over saving her own people. Because the bomb blast was pretty effective, a lot more than just the human delegates got blown into the, at that point, open waters due to it breaking the barrier. And now, hypothetically, you'd think they could breathe underwater, so I'm not sure how many of her people would need to be saved in the first place. But I know there's going to still be disorganization. But she did go out of her way specifically to save him and bring him to the surface. And I think that was what annoyed him most of all.
Yeah, and apparently the punishment, as Salt later explains to Barclay, is that she will be made to swim alone. And to be honest, I forget her exact description of that, but it's probably not positive.
I think it was just as simple as she would be allowed to live, she would take Hansis, all of that. But none of her people would be around her. She'd just be an exile. She'll be in the waters of the ocean all by herself.
You're sort of
Which,
ostracized and such from
yeah,
home.
yeah, like, I mean, it's considered, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's considered inhumane for somebody to be put in solitary confinement for a certain period of time. Now, of course, the United States doesn't give a damn about that. We do as we please. Go America. Yay, torture. But I'm pretty sure civilized countries, it's inhumane, and they don't do that for, again, over a certain period. But this is her being basically in solitary confinement for the rest of her living existence. So yeah, I can see how that would probably be something she would want to avoid.
And it's one of the things in which Kate says that, one, they don't have Salt, but if they did, they could have handed over to Tide. Especially if they're going to punish Salt, Kate could not in good conscience hand her over. And that leads to Tide saying, well, this is just going to, I forget how he phrased it, but pretty much then they're going to go to war. The other classic war between the land and the sea. And he gives, I think he gives a few ultimatums of things he wants done. I actually forget the basics of them. I do remember the last one though because it was sort of funny.
Well, I'm pretty sure before you get to the last one, I'm pretty sure that one of them was the agreements they had in place to get done by 2065 will need to be done in, it was either 3 years or 5 years. To which Kate replied, that's not possible. And actually, that maybe it's not physically possible, who knows? But also, who cares? And he's like, too bad, get it done.
I sort of like Ty. Doesn't waste any time. Just do it, bro.
No, I also like Ty a lot. He did appear for a lot of screen time in this episode, but I actually really enjoyed this character. And I also enjoyed that they shared a bit of a moment of connection. Not connection, that's going maybe a bit foul, but of agreement, because both Kate and Ty were wondering what connection Salt and Barclay have, because he had no idea why she would go out of her way to save Barclay. And Kate, of course, has been wondering the entire time why Salt picked Barclay to be the ambassador. So there's still a small moment of wondering what's going on there. And I mean, love is love. Like, who knows? But Tide for his entire screen time was pretty fun, and I quite enjoyed him. And the ultimatum was, as the kids used to say, touch beast.
Yeah, and his very last thing, this shows Ty's quality sense of humor. Like, he probably wasn't joking, but he wanted them to change the name of Earth, saying that the name Earth was too dry. Which, to be fair, from their perspective, for a planet that's like, what, 75% water? I made that number up, but it's pretty close. The fact that it's called Earth could come across as somewhat insensitive, so yeah, I like the idea that, hey, change the name of Earth. And to be honest, that might be the easiest part of his ultimatums that they could follow.
I mean, hey, Gauth of America, am I right?
Go for Snizzle to go picture on the video right there. But once we get past that meeting, what we primarily have is Salt and Barclay on the run. There's obviously a massive manhunt, not just by Unit, who of course is looking for Barclay and Salt, but there's also the Gansburg military guy. They want, I don't know what they want with Barclay, if they even care about Barclay. I'm sure to an extent they do, but I don't think they also want to sort of kill Salt. It's actually not clear to me. I feel like at one point there was implied that they might use Salt for some type of experimentation.
Yeah, no, they wanted to test the sonic weaponry they had on South to see if it could be applicable to the entire species.
Yeah, so they have that in mind. So both sides are sort of looking for Barclay and Salt. Meanwhile, they're in this like waterfront factory type thing. And they have, personally, I think it's a nice moment. My main issue with the moments between Salt and Barclay is that it just seems, this is just my view. For the first three episodes, Salt has seemed pretty, I would just say, reserved and professional. But it's like as soon as this bomb goes off and she saves Barclay, all of a sudden she's like, she just feels like almost a different person in a way. She's a lot more free with her emotions. Just the way that she's talking, it's like she's excited, she's thrilled to be on the run, it's exciting to her, it's different. And it just, I'm not sure they did a great job bridging the two emotional states, in my opinion.
No, I don't think they did a great job either. She reminded me of a character, maybe Mantis, I forget exactly, but an MCU character. Maybe somebody in Loki, I don't know. The MCU has a lot of characters, and a lot of them nowadays feel kind of samey. But yeah, out of nowhere, she's not so much making jokes, but I guess technically speaking, she also had perhaps a near-death experience, or maybe she gets to change a bit, but I don't know, she just seemed a little more giddy than you would think. And perhaps you can say it's completely justified, and maybe it is, but it still seemed like a lot out of nowhere. And I would have preferred a little more easing into that versus it seemed like a 180 tone right off the bat as soon as we catch up with them in the warehouse. And I don't know, it was strange. I did like a primer scream. I'm not even going to attempt to emulate it, and I'm sure you're all thinking the half-inch that I'm not going to, but that was kind of amusing. And Barclay's was not nearly as impressive.
Yeah, like I said, I actually like the moment between the two of them. Yeah, ever since episode one, I actually enjoy the chemistry we've gotten with them, and we saw a bit of that in the deep also. And I liked seeing that here too. It's just that I just don't know if Salt's character was given enough backstory to make this as believable as it could have been, if that makes sense. I still think it's probably one of the stronger elements of the episode, but I just don't know if they did enough to back it up.
No, I don't think they did either. And also, that's where we get the, as Michael said earlier, slightly deceptive episode name. Because Barclay's idea is for them to go hide, but someplace in Wales, was it?
Yeah, that he can get them out of this area, and he has some friends up in Wales who might be able to hide them away, and they can just live a life up there. And with a title like The Witch of the Waterfall, you might, I'm not sure what you would think, but all of this is sort of like a metaphorical existence where, hey, you could live with me in the water. Like, she asks, hey, can I live up there? And she's excited. Again, like James said, she almost feels like an MCU character, but she's excited. She's like, hey, could I live up there? And he's like, well, they have lakes and rivers and stuff. And she's like, oh, hey, I could be the witch of the waterfall and you can live with me. And it just felt sort of, I mean, it's a nice felt, but it's probably never going to happen. And yeah, it's something. But on the upside, he got to fuck a mermaid, so am I right?
And I know people will, for the end of time, meme the encounter between the two, leading to the kiss, and afterwards. And meme away as you choose. But on the whole, I agree with Michael. Actually, I kind of like the relationship. Like, I've seen some people saying, oh, it's a relationship between two different species. And I'm sorry, but this is an alien universe where there are sentient species, and species with cognizance who aren't just human. I consider that really nothing less than racism in a lot of ways.
I mean,
Or
not only that,
speciesism.
hasn't Jack, like, officially hooked up with aliens before?
Well, to be fair, Jack himself is an alien.
That's fine. My point is he's hooked up with people outside of his own species before. I mean, he's literally with a human, which means he was quote unquote with an alien. So yeah, like you say, I just think it doesn't really matter in this universe.
And you see this sometimes in other forms of media where there's multiple species living in the same universe, and maybe somebody from one species gets with another one, and people are like, "Oh, but they're different species." I would truly never understand that type of thinking. In those types of universes, that is not only not unreasonable, it makes logical sense. As I said earlier, I was half joking that love is love. And if you happen to love somebody who's a fish woman, you love someone who's a fish woman. Maybe something more is going to be revealed. I've seen all over Twitter. Think people are joking. It's how you tell with Doctor Who Twitter about episode 5 is going to reveal that Barclay is the master. And no, just no. That would be. I'm not even going to get into what that would be. But let him love a fish. Like, what's it really matter? I just don't see an issue with it. And apparently, and it was hard for me to tell exactly, but did the wife intentionally give him up, or did they just happen to be overheard when she took the phone call from?
Yeah, so this is a scene in which, like we said, he's trying to reach a friend in Wales, so he is able to call Corby. He has a second phone for Corby. So calls Corby, asks Corby to give the phone to the mother, and then we see in a scene that's not necessarily dissimilar from whether it be season 3 with Martha's mother. And we see Barbara talking to Barclay, agreeing like, "Hey, yeah, bring a cow to this bridge and such." Barclay believes her, but we see there's a bunch of soldiers in the apartment listening. It's not easy for me to gauge. I suspect that the ex-wife probably called them in because she's worried about her husband and she has no idea why the hell, well, ex-husband, but she's has no idea why the hell her ex-husband's on the run and he's like a fugitive. So I think she's just doing it for quote unquote his safety. That's what I got from it, but I don't think we actually know. I'd have to imagine if that was the case, Colby would be disappointed. But again, it wasn't clear to me how that choice was made, and I don't think we saw any strong emotion from Colby like past the phone call. So it's just hard for me to say.
Yeah, and of course, at the end of the episode, she warns him, "Hey, no, run away, it's a trap." But I'm sorry, that's too late. And I know the same exact thing happened in season 3 of Doctor Who with Martha's mother, but I'm sorry, that's too late. Like, I guess you're doing the right thing. Well, I guess technically in that case, there's the father. But it's in a situation where it just wasn't enough, and it wasn't soon enough. So I don't know. I guess props to her for doing the right thing in the last split second. But when you do what I would consider the wrong thing all the time before then, and to be fair, that plan, it's a nice thought, but that was going to be very hard to accomplish. Getting out of the way to Wales and hide out there. Like, good luck with that in the age of the surveillance we have. But hey, Barclay, just he wanted to enjoy his time with Salt and the wits of the waterfall and all of that great stuff. So I don't know. I think it was extremely optimistic on his part, but the wife did not help matters.
Yeah, and to be honest, the only other thing that's worth discussing, in my view, is the finale, in which, like we said, the UK military. When I say UK military, I mean Gansburg, who I don't think is even British, but apparently he's in command of the at least some military forces. I don't really understand it, but he is. So he and Unit are looking for Barclay and South, and there's actually a standoff between Unit and the military, where Kate is like, at this point, the deepfake has been proven to be a deepfake. Where as far as like the genre is concerned, did we find out that deepfake was created by the Institute or was the genre behind? I actually can't remember. I'm not sure it makes a big difference because either way, the genre is sort of like an asshole anyway. But he, of course, wants South dead, and though on one side of the bridge, we have Unit on the other side of the bridge, and at one point, Kate even orders Unit to hold the guns to the British soldiers. So even though I think Kate's right, I mean, talk about a very interesting, I guess, diplomatic situation right there.
Yeah, that would have been controversial in the news, and the January says you wouldn't dare shoot British troops on British soil. But UNIT is a international force who has, I would assume, higher claims on Barclay and South than the American general who was put in charge of British troops. It already seems like it's going way above and beyond what should be allowed in terms of controversy. And I know that the media would, of course, side with the British troops most likely, but the fact of the matter is, I think Kate was in the right there. And I know Sorley got all, "No, Kate, what are you doing?" Well, what do you think she's doing? We literally saw the British troops arresting the unit troops. And we also know that the Janiel hacked into unit communications. So am I supposed to take the Janiel side on this issue? So no, I don't take the Janiel side. I think Kate was right. And I would usually say at this point, I'm really interested to see what the ramifications are going to be in episode 5 between this standoff. Maybe unit no longer gets funding. I'm sure that things are going to come up. But on the other hand, we saw what they did with the ramifications of the bomb going off. So perhaps the ramifications aren't going to be all that impressive, unfortunately.
Yeah, we also saw these soldiers are rusting unit soldiers, so I have to imagine Kate wouldn't be pleased with that either. But I think it's an interesting case. I'm not sure if it's going anywhere. It did lead to the scene in which we see Barbara getting dragged off. I forget, was she being dragged off by unit or the soldiers? I can't remember which side had her.
Oh no, but everyone was gotten by the unit soldiers, not
So
the.
that's mildly more trustworthy. But we see Barclay sort of going over. I sort of wish he would have tailored Salt, to be honest. Like maybe blocked her from the bullets. Like, hey, if you're going to shoot Salt, you're going to have to shoot me. But he didn't. Now I'm not sure it would have made a big difference, but I sort of wish he had. But we see him encouraging Salt to, because they're on the bridge, to go into the water. I mean, as soon as she touches the water, by the way, Aqua kind is going to know where she is, so she's going to be tried, and then hey, she's going to swim alone. And we get the scene where it sounds sort of corny, but she does jump into the water, and he rushes to the side, screaming at the water, "Hey, you'll never swim alone. I'll find you." It's sort of corny. I also think it's sort of touching. And again, since I actually like the relationship, I hope good things come of it. Even though it's given how this series is, I sort of doubt it would.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was quasi touching too. I also thought it was a little bit laughable, just because of the phrasing. Oh, you'll never swim alone. Like I get it, but it was kind of. It's not nearly as bad as this case. Don't get me wrong, but it reminds me of the whole thumb thing they did in Oven 55, where it was supposed to be some emotional moment between Ryan and one of the characters in the episode, but because it was literally just sucking a thumb, it looked utterly ridiculous. And again, it's not nearly as bad in this one, but it did make me think of that for a split second. So it lost like half a point there. Anything that makes me think of Oven 55 loses a point. That's just how it works.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, as far as closing thoughts go, one, I'm not really sure what we're going to see next episode. I'm not even going to try to guess what we're going to see next episode. I would imagine we see some ramifications. I would like to see the Prime Minister have some type of, I guess, repercussion from what happened here. But it's just not clear to me exactly where it's going. It's not even clear to me we're going to see a whole lot of Salt next episode. I mean, I would sort of assume we would, but I actually don't know. Like, she might not pop up until the end with some emotional scene with Barclay. I'm just not sure. My point being, this one, for a few different reasons, it just felt so tonally different from what we've seen this far that it sort of stands out to me. I haven't really tracked ratings on IMDb or anything. I would have to imagine this is one of the lower rated episodes of the first 4 episodes because it just, I actually can't imagine I'm the only one who feels it this way, but it just doesn't feel like what we got previously, especially compared with The Deep, which again I thought was a legitimately decent introspective episode. And this one just didn't have that same vibe, even though I did like some of the South Barclay stuff. But yeah, I'm not saying I dislike the episode, but it just felt a little more all over the place. It was just a lot more massive than I was really expecting it to be.
I mostly agree with Michael. I didn't hate the episode either. And to be fair, I didn't actually like The Deep as much as Michael did. And this episode, I was theorizing, maybe it didn't get to the point when I was theorizing, but they're going to be using a lot of money on the CGI to show the underwater city or place of the Aqua Kind. And no, they're not, because we don't see anything about their civilization. We hear South talk about it a little bit with Barclay, how the civilization works, but we didn't really see any of it, which seems like a kind of huge waste. But I guess I get it. It's 5 episodes. Either way, though, this episode is certainly not going to be considered the strongest of the series. I thought the moments between Salt and Barclay were actually good. I liked those moments. And I thought Kate was rather emotional this episode, at least 2 times during the episode, due to very fair reasons. She broke down crying because she's going through a lot, but she is in charge of an extremely dangerous situation right now. She just, I guess, does the British thing, gets a hold of herself, and just carries on. But I do wonder if it's leading into and the parts with Sorley taking command a bit right after Kate was shot at, if Kate's going to actually leave unit at the end of this next episode. I think the chances aren't low that that's going to happen.
Yeah, especially since we saw Shirley take command for a little bit early in the episode, and it seemed like she was doing a decent job. It would be interesting. To be honest, I feel like it would be a giant loss. Like Kate has never been a character I felt deeply interested in. But I guess it'd be a change in status quo. I mean, the first time that a Lethbridge Stewart hasn't been in control of unit, I guess, in some time. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, hey, on a side note, this is not related to whether or not she's going to be in command anymore, but I think was it this episode that mentioned that there's a brief mention of Morris?
Yeah, Morris, who both my brother and I hate. With Morris,
Probability 100%.
jeez,
Shut the fuck up.
yeah, no, I hated Morris, but Morris actually gets a mention in this episode. So sadly, he's still alive. I was hoping that he was, I don't know, one of the only people who was legitimately dusted and Navel reconfigured. But yeah,
Maybe that's
Morris,
gonna be the next Big Finish spin of Morris and the Links.
I don't think even Big Finn is
We want to
would
touch that.
would want to pick that up.
But yeah, when it comes to this one, it was very different than what I was expecting. Certainly not bad, but just a bit inconsistent. And more than anything, I'm just sort of interested to see where this next episode goes. And hopefully they can finish this one up in a generally positive way. And I guess we'll see what happens in I guess now just like a handful of days. So that's all I've got.
You know, I don't have anything else myself. It's not my favorite episode. It had some strong moments, but it did feel a bit off in characterization of South. And I thought her characterization was actually rather strong in the first three episodes. And I don't know, I just felt it would have been better if the romance had been done where South didn't feel like she flipped completely from one personality to another. And I know that she was technically a delegate and she was trying to present herself in one way, and maybe that's not how she usually is. None of that really works for me. It just felt too jarringly different, in my opinion. But either way, the episode had some strong moments. I'm interested to see how it ends, but I don't know how much I think I'm going to love the ending. I think it will probably end decently. I don't think it's going to offend me, but it might go back to what I was saying in the very first episode. I don't know if this sword justifies its own existence. But I guess we shall see when the episode comes out.
Yeah, and if you have any thoughts on this one, please, you can let us know below, either here on YouTube or you could just add us at Twitter. We are at Brothers Mahoney. I have to imagine the reaction to this one's sort of mixed, so yeah, I'm just sort of curious. But yeah, that's how we've got. As always, you've been listening to the Brothers Mahoney. I've been Michael.
And I've been James.
Thanks for listening. Have yourself a fishy night.